In this tutorial, I'll go over how to calculate some vegetation indices in QGIS using the I.VI tool and Sentinel-2 satellite data. So if you go to your processing toolbox and you search for I.VI, you'll see under Grass 7, I.VI, and open that up and go to the Help menu.
This is actually a really complete and useful help menu. Here it shows each of the vegetation indices that you can calculate with the tool.
And some background about remote sensing imagery. We'll be using Sentinel-2 imagery for this, which is 13 bands, and you'll use different ones to calculate different indices. So close that for now. Go to Open Raster Data and load in your Sentinel-2 rasters. So there you can see all of the bands. And to know which band is which will be really helpful when we're running the tool, go to the Sentinel-2 Wikipedia page. You can get some good information about what the satellite is and what it collects. And then if you scroll down, you can see that these are the bands that we have. So band 2 is blue, band 3 is green, band 4 is red, and band 8 is near infrared, and you have the resolution that each band has. So what I like to do is rename each of my files so that they're a little bit easier to work with once you open up the tool. So you can do that by right-clicking and go to Rename, and then find out what band 1 is first. Coastal Aerosol. Go back to your QGIS, right-click, rename, and just add to the end Coastal Aerosol. And hit enter, and that's band 1. This is the B01, corresponds to the bands. So go through and do that for each one. It'll just make life a little bit easier later on. I'm going to pause the video and name them and then come back. Now that they're all labeled with their bands, we're going to see what part of the world we're looking at. So if you go up to Plugins and go to Manage and Install Plugins, we're going to install the OpenLayers plugin, and I already have it installed, which is why it has this X. But if you don't have it installed already, there will be a button down here that says Install Plugin. So click it, and then when it's done, click Close. And then go up to Web, go to OpenLayers plugin, and then we'll just add the Google Street Map to see where in the world we are. And then if you drag it down below one of your layers so that the raster shows up on top, and zoom out a bit, there's the part of the lake that the Sentinel data is covering. And right click and zoom to layer, and then turn off the layer so you can see where we are. So we're near Bukoba. And then we'll turn off the Google Streets layer because it takes a bit to load. We don't need it right now. Now the first vegetation index that we're going to calculate is NDVI, which is the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. So we'll open up our I.VI tool. It might be under recently used because we've opened it once already, or you can just search for I.VI and open it up. And we'll go to the help and just see what exactly NDVI is. So if you scroll down, you can see it's here, the Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. And if you want to know how it's calculated, you can keep scrolling down. And here's what it uses, the different bands that it's going to use in its calculation. And then this is the equation. So it's the near infrared minus the red band divided by near infrared plus the red band. So if we go to parameters, we'll put in the different bands that it requires. So the first one is the red channel, which we have labeled red, or band 4. Type of vegetation index is NDVI. There's the whole list of everything that you can do. The near infrared channel is band 8. The green channel, band 3. And the blue channel, band 2. And then the 5th channel, which is just band 5, but it's one of the vegetation red edge layers. And then the 7th channel, band 7. And everything else we'll just leave blank. And then under vegetation index, we're going to save to file. And we'll save it as NDVI. And then click run. It will take a few minutes for this tool to run, so we'll come back to it when it's finished. And there we go. The vegetation index ran, but this is the temporary file, so we're going to add the one that we saved. So right click the one that says vegetation index and remove it. And then add raster data and find the file that you just made that might be called NDVI if you named it the way I did, and click open. And then we're going to change the colors so we can see it a little bit more clearly and see where the index is high and where it's low. So right click it, go to properties, and under style, change the render type to single band pseudo color. And then we will leave this as linear, the interpolation. Color we're going to change to red, yellow, green. So that's going to make the negative numbers red and then the positive numbers green, and a sort of range in the middle from orange to yellow to green. The negative numbers should be where there's no vegetation at all, and then the positive numbers will be more vegetation. So if you go to equal interval under mode, and we'll just bump this up to 10 classes and click apply, and then click OK. So you can see the red is where the lake is, if you recall the Google map, which we can turn back on. Click on Google Streets, zoom out a bit. So the red is where the lake is, which makes sense because there's no vegetation there. And then the green is where there's a lot of vegetation. So if we zoom in to one of the shoreline areas, and let's turn your raster layers off. And let's find a city to look at. There's Bukoba right here. We'll zoom into it and then turn your NDVI layer back on. So what we're seeing is that the orange is where there's a lot of development. I believe this was the airport. Yep, that's a runway for the airport. And so those are orange, yellow or orange, indicating that they don't have a lot of vegetation, which makes sense. And then the lake where there's water has the least vegetation. And then the darker green is where there's less development, so there's more vegetation. So that's your NDVI index, and we will explore some of the other indices in the following tutorials.